Now, I first heard about 4 weeks ago when there was an article in the Australian and the Financial Review. So it's really nice how we hear about how the town is growing. We've been holding information evenings since about 2004, and as I say, we're involved in all sorts of government things, and it's really interesting when you read it in the Financial Review and the Australian. So I guess that means straight away that those lots are not available today to sell, or as real estate agents we would have known. And as contractors around, you probably would have known because you would have been asked to put in some sewer and some roads and bits and pieces. So has anyone been asked to work on those lots yet in South Hedland?
Area K, 150 lots.
If we talk about Area K, is that
That's
called?
on the corner of North Circular Road
Yep.
and Murdoch Drive.
And how many lots?
I think it's 150.
Okay, 150, price from 5,400. And the 5,400 that they're talking about, we've actually got a video here tonight so that we can show you, and you can learn from, not from me as a real estate agent who you really trust, but from this show from Landcorp as to exactly what's happening. So is everybody able to just, I think we're all going to be seated?
There is a chair, right?
And we'll just run that video through for you now.
And Jan, just adjacent to the swimming pool in South Hedland, Urtec are working on lots there, adjacent to the swimming pool.
About 200, 300?
No, not that.
Not that many.
But that's another lot that's
Yeah.
opening up.
Okay. All right. Let's watch what Landcorp are doing for us.
Located in Western Australia's Pilbara region, Pilbara's port city is defined by the coastal town of PortHedland and nearby South Hedland. From its early port activities supporting pearling and pastoral industries, Pilbara's port city now serves the mineral-rich Eastern Pilbara region. The port handles close to 200 million tonnes of commodities, worth $40 billion a year, making it the world's largest port for bulk exports, with plans to expand the port's capacity to 400 million tonnes per year. Landcorp is partnering with the Pilbara City's Office, Town of PortHedland and the private sector to establish quality residential, retail, commercial and accommodation opportunities. A key project is the multi-million-dollar revitalisation of South Hedland. The project, undertaken by Landcorp, will deliver a livable city with a diverse economy, affordable living options and high-quality amenities to support the growing number of families wanting to call the port city home. A total of $77 million has been secured for the first 2 phases of the project. Phase 1 of the project has already delivered a new town square featuring a grassed outdoor amphitheatre for concerts and festivals, a shaded marketplace and water play area, a new main street with pedestrian-friendly walkways, which will ultimately feature a lively array of al fresco-style cafes, shops and restaurants. Tree-lined landscaping runs between the shopping centre and the town square to connect the 2 activity hubs. The shopping centre will be upgraded to improve its public access, while retail opportunities will be expanded. Through these innovative and thoughtful designs, the town centre will be a comfortable place for people to enjoy as a meeting place. The town centre will also feature commercial offices on the ground floor, with residential homes on upper levels. The designs of these buildings will reflect the climate, while also focusing on creating a truly unique port city style that is distinctive, innovative and sustainable, giving character to the community. The mixed-use element will provide residents with the complete lifestyle experience. The higher density buildings will not only create energy efficiencies, but also create vibrancy in the town centre. The state government is now calling for expressions of interest from suitable developers to build South Hedland's newest 226-hectare master-planned community, the Western Edge. It has the potential to deliver over 2,300 residential and commercial dwellings, tripling the size of the South Hedland city centre. It will house over 5,400 people, contributing to the establishment of a permanent residential population in the town. With 38 hectares of open space, including parklands and multiple use corridors, the western edge will contain ample recreation facilities, including waffle-grade football fields. It has the potential to contain a primary school, a local centre, a future tertiary education site, and an aged care facility. With projects such as the Western Edge, this Pilbara city will no longer be just a commercial centre, but a modern community with attractive amenities and infrastructure. Through Pilbara Cities and Royalties for Regions initiatives, Port and South Hedland will be firmly established as Pilbara's port city.
Has anyone seen that before? Do you like it? Okay, I'm not sure how much of that people were able to grasp as it was running through, but it does say, and there's a newspaper article that confirms, that that last section, which they called Western Edge, is a subdivision on the outside where I've put on that piece of paper 5,400 people, announced in 2012. Now, if we were really, really lucky, or lucky depending on whether you're an owner or a buyer, we could have that land available tomorrow and we could have some more houses built and it would be delightful. But I'm getting a bit of shaking of heads over there. It's not likely that that will happen straight away. But what is likely is that we will have 5,500 people living over there sometime into the future. The idea of holding this evening tonight is to bring you together to let you know that the town is changing. You've seen signs all around the place, you've seen construction and you've been hearing that PortHedland's growing. Then we suddenly hear that the outer harbour's not going ahead and that there is uncertainty over development. So tonight is to try and dispel those myths and show you what we do know is fact, and to talk to you about opinions as real estate agents, what we think is likely to happen and when you should buy or sell. We also, because I want to scare you about people coming here, we thought we'd scare you a bit more and talk about wills. And we find that a lot of our clients, when we go and talk to them about selling property, don't have wills. And that's not really the scary part. The scary part is when I go and talk to someone where there's already been a death and they have a house and it hasn't been left to them in the right way, and that's the sad part. So tonight we have my great friends in my real estate office. There's Jerry and Brett, Simone, Sharon, Emma, Donna somewhere, and Shannon, our project manager. They're here to talk to you informally and formally of their opinions of what's happening in the market. And then Kathy will be talking to us later about wills. And Dan's popped his head in. A few months ago he talked to us about capital growth and capital gains. So that if we happily sell your property, hopefully you don't have to pay so much in capital gains tax. And last month we had someone here from Greg Rowan Associates, was Matt Young, and he was telling people how they can get the most out of developing their property. So if there's any opportunity to maximise your price, to learn how to do that. But back to tonight, the idea is just to go through what is happening with our growth and our land release as we know it, and then later on we'll move on to the other sections. So if I can just show you back here, in 1971 was when the iron ore industry really started in this area. Sorry, that's all right, and it's shrunk. And prior to the starting of iron ore, and I'm not sure how much history people know, this was a little town, always a port town, and there were about 300 houses. During the 60s, manganese was exported, but it was mainly livestock and before that pearling. And anyone who knows more than me, feel happy to correct me along the way, because we hear the stories, but there's not a lot of fact that we can get to all have the same story. But that does seem to be a common one. Houses were all the way across the road from us, all the way through, and then when iron ore started, that was basically all the town was. So South Hedland was designed for 60,000 people. Today, we think we have around about 7,500 or 8,000 permanent people and about 4,000 in PortHedland. So if you remember that we were designed for 60,000 people back here when the port was exporting about 20 million tonne per annum. We've gone up to here in 2012 and the port's just exported 220 to 240 million tonne. And we still have the same number roughly of houses, about 6,000 houses. This red line I don't think was meant to be the houses, but it just happens to have corresponded with our land release. So we went from 300 houses to 5,600 here in that period, and we're only just starting to increase our number here. We're seeing new houses being built, but what happens is those old houses that used to be all around here have all gone. The West End, from the hospital back to PortHedland, used to house all of the population of this area, and now we can't tell exactly how many people are living here, but 2 years ago it was less than 200. We think there's a few more now because of the units, but we're still losing old houses. So there is a massive need, as you know, for housing, and that's why our real estate market, quite interestingly, back here in the 70s, we might buy a house for about 20,000. Houses around about 2,000 here were around about $100,000, but those ones now are up around $1 million. So as we've doubled our port capacity, we've gone something like 10 times our house value. And that's why government are crying now, because rents have got so high, and they're realising that they should have given us more houses back here. If we had a whole stack here to start mining, we should have also had a lot here in 2000 or 2001. We're very behind. Absolutely at least 10 years, which would take us from 2000 to 2010. But we're really behind of all these ones because that release that we've just heard that's happening of 5,000 people, Brett, how many houses would that be?
You think you've probably got 3 people on average per home, so that's pretty good. 1,800, 2,000 homes, something like that.
So if it's 2,000 houses, it's hardly going to make a touch on our demand for housing as we expand all here. Now, projects up to there, from 2012 to 2015, are committed projects through the Port Authority. We've got a Port Authority PowerPoint here that I managed to get hold of at the mining conference last week, and that shows yet again the projected growth. This only goes back from 2002 and projected to 2017. This period is all a period of construction because we don't have enough berths yet to be able to export all that iron ore. So they all have to be built. We don't know exactly how much that will cost or how many people we need. But there's projects that are handed out in this Prospect magazine every quarter that say there's something like $30 billion worth of projects in the Pilbara, and probably around about 10 or 12 of those will feed through to PortHedland. So if we bring that back, 12 billion over 5 years, it's about probably 2.5 billion to 3 billion per year, which is a lot of people when their average might be, I don't know, 100,000, 200,000 per person. But we don't really have any numbers of how many we need, but we expect we need 105,000 flying flat workers over the next 2 or 3 years. We've got 30,000 people living in town, and 12 of those are permanent, 18 of those are temporary. So there's a massive shortage of housing, and these projects need to have housing to go ahead. So the first thing is, don't be frightened by extra land being released, and if you're wanting housing for your staff or for your businesses, do be frightened because they're still going to take a while to come along. Go to the next one. This shows all the construction that's going to happen here in the port. So we started off here and a bit over here, and a bit down here, but all this will be dredged and will be built. And there's definitely 5 years of construction work to keep everybody busy in that time. This is before we even talk about outer harbour. Oh, it's stuck. Oh, I didn't know. You thought I was vacuous and I'm not. Now this is our proposed, well, it was a proposed tug pen, it became an approved tug pen. We now still think it's an approved tug pen, and we've heard that the work was meant to start in mid-2012 and finish in 2014, and not quite sure how that's gone, but that's where it's going to be. We still keep our beach over here, luckily, at Hunt Point, but we're not sure if we'll have access to it. And of course, once again, massive construction to build all that tug pen. This is Lumsden Point, which is down in tucked in the inner harbour, and that's to give us some landside activities here, so that all the extra growth and extra ships and exports will be able to operate, because they'll be able to get fuel supplies and extra land supplies that they might need. That project was put behind about 5 years, and it's just been ramped up again because the ports realised that they need that to support all the inner harbour growth. So it looks like that is looking for a financier to be able to go ahead. And the potential outer harbour, and I think we're expecting an answer on that, I think in about another 12 months, if anybody knows. It keeps being put out a bit more and a bit more. There's still some work going ahead for the potential, and I think $1 billion was approved to do some what they call regret capital, so do some dredging and some piling and some work. And if it goes ahead, that's fine. If it doesn't, at least that part's been done, and that's all that gets lost. So I think that's about the last slide on that. Sorry?
Only lose a bill.
Yeah. Better than 30 billion to build it, not needed. So I hope that explains that there's a lot of work, and also that the housing is still short and probably will be for a while. Jerry, how long do you think if those lots came on they'd be available?
I spoke to a builder today, one of the prominent builders in town. He owns a house and he's in the same boat. He's worried about selling or keeping it, but all this coming on. But 2,000 houses, and I just asked him, we've got 2 or 3 prominent builders in town, and a couple more coming in. How many houses can you build in a year, and how many can they build? He's talking maximum of 400 a year. So there's 5 years worth of build, right? And the headworks haven't started, and so it's going to be a while, but it will happen eventually.
Yeah, it will happen. We've got an earth worker here. How long would it take from today to have roads?
6 months.
6 months we could have roads and power and sewer?
Blocks, yeah.
Sorry?
They've got a time frame of 6 months.
That's on these ones or the small ones?
That's in the corner of, I believe, on Murdoch Drive and North Circular Road.
Oh, these are the 150 lots. Yeah. So 150 lots can come to market in about 6 months, but there's been a bit of lead time to those.
I think one's starting on the 16th of next month, that corner.
Yep.
And there's a contract with EarthTech are doing the ones now on opposite Jason and swimming pools, so that's happening. There's others happening around that's been priced. There's all been priced.
Yep.
As well, and the sewage farm, that's been priced, but we don't know when to start on that.
So it's all happening. There's actual work now because if the earth workers are starting to do quotes and things and pricing it, it's more likely to be moving on. We expect we probably won't get this new one for maybe 2 years, Brett?
But it will take a thinking the lead up time before we start seeing what's available to the public. There's a lot of infrastructure to be done before that can be completed. The sewage works is probably a key one. And we've been told the funding's not approved until 2014 for that, but it'd be interesting to know what it's actually due to go.
Once the contractors get forced into it, they've got to do it in 6 months.
And when will the contracts be awarded to them at this?
One's been awarded, it's been awarded,
Yeah.
and you'll see site works happening, they're coming us on the end of this month.
So that'll be completed by this time next year?
Yes.
Good. Did everyone hear that? We're talking about moving the sewer ponds, aren't we?
That's been on the cards,
Yes,
it's been priced,
yes.
it's been out to tender to various contractors. We're only involved because we're suppliers of material.
Yeah.
So there's other contractors for from tendering on it.
Now, when the sewer ponds move, which would be delightful, there could be enough houses to house 10,000 people up on that piece of paper where I put 10,000 in 2008. So we could have that land that was released to Satterley in December 2008 couldn't go ahead for several reasons. One of them being that the sewer ponds were quite close and had a buffer over part of it, so they would have lost one section. But more importantly, because Satterley decided after 2 years that nobody wanted to live in PortHedland and we didn't really need those blocks, and so they didn't go any further. And we're still hoping that they will become available. And where I've got the race course, that's sort of close to where the sewer ponds are. And the area you've just heard about will probably house about another, I think it's 1,500 people, 2,000 people in that area. And Hancock's have a purchase on some land near that, the other side of the sewer ponds. The hotel site that was announced in 2007, which is next to the hospital, we were told we'd have a hotel within a year of that one, and it's now 2012, so that hasn't come yet. And the marina we were promised in 1980 is still coming, and council are meeting tomorrow night to decide whether to allocate $40 million from a BHP contribution to build fly in fly out at the airport, whether that in fact goes to upgrade the airport or whether it will be used to fund a marina. So if anyone's interested in viewing that, that's 5:30 tomorrow night. So you can all go along and have a talk, but you need to be there at 5:25 because the meetings start right on time, and you need to talk in the public question time or the public statement time right at the beginning.
Hey Jen, is that Hancock prospect?
Yes.
So, was there any word on when she's going to be starting all her stuff?
She can't do anything up here until we get, for the housing.
Well, for all her work, yeah.
Right. Sort of. So the reason I mentioned all that is to show that we are growing. We're going to go to 50,000 or 100,000 or more people. The matter is,
Well, I've once received information that the water allocation for PortHedland would not support that growth of population. So, do you know anything about this? Has the water allocation increased, or are there more water resources been made available?
you're right, and we talked earlier about things like sewer, water, power that need to be made available before any of this can be released. So the reality is that all those things need to be addressed, and once they're addressed, this land will be released. So we've got a time lapse in between that happening. So that's why, meanwhile, the town is doing all these high density things in South Hedland and PortHedland, and that's why you're seeing lots of units pop up, because we can build units straight away. They don't withdraw as much water as a whole new subdivision. So 2 things I want to do tonight. One is to put your fears at rest, I suppose, that those blocks aren't coming available overnight. But then if we're trying to get housing, as I say, that's scary. The other thing is, I'm just going to show of who owns land and is worried about too much land, and who wants to buy land and worried about shortage of land. So who owns land and is worried about too much? Right? And who wants to buy land and is worried about shortage? Right, about half and half. Okay. The good news is For those of you who are worried about the prices dropping quickly, not going to happen, all right? Because of those time frames, waiting for water, waiting for all those things. People of you wanting to buy, the good news is there's redevelopment happening in high density, so there will be units and things available. But if you want a block of land on a traditional site, it'll probably be a while. How that works together is if you're worried about this now, it's good, because we want you to be thinking about how you will dispose of your property so you don't get caught with property when there's more on the market. And the biggest thing we're saying is with all this construction, that's going to take about 5 years. But houses, there's one across the road you probably can't see now, really, really old, rented at $2,500 a week, was empty for about 6 to 8 weeks earlier this year. Next door to that, we have units rented between $1,500 to $3,000 a week. They have 10 or 12 people queuing up each week to try and rent them. So the demand for those new products is going to be strong all the way through. The demand for older properties in older houses, we're already losing demand on them, and companies are saying, I won't rent them. FMG look across the road and they'll say, I won't rent anything like that, but I will take nice new units or nice new houses. BHP are trying to build their own. They're not putting people in old things anymore. So you end up getting them, contractors are having to put their workers in. They're starting to get cross. They'd rather go to a mining camp. So what we want you to really understand is that it's those old houses that are run down 30 or 40 or 50 years old that will really have a use-by date very soon. You might manage to get high rents on them through this boom period, but the minute there's a hiccup in the market, the tenants don't want to go there. And the property managers are telling me all the time, anything that's new, 10 or 12 people want to go in it and you get best rents. Anything that's old and run down, they won't rent it until someone's actually looked at it. They're frightened to rent unseen because people are getting disillusioned. And I think it's common sense. You saw that video. It shows that South Hedland is growing so much, and so is PortHedland. But people come here and they just want a good standard of living. So if you've got older houses, I strongly suggest before you leave tonight, just talk to someone about some timing of that so that you don't get caught with them. And if you want to buy, it's the old story, buy whatever you can as much as you can, because we're going to need lots and lots of houses over the next 5 years. Got any questions on that before I hand over to Kathy to make sure it's structured right?
The question, the BHP is going to build 1,400 houses in construction. Most of that will be 2030.
We guess that we need about, we've got 6,000 houses now, dwellings, and we project that we'd really like to have 20,000 to be a normal town, so that we're not just a one customer, one industry, one product town. So if we can start getting 2,000 here and 2,000 there and 2,000 somewhere else, we might start to see some sort of normality.
We've also got a 4,000 man camp going next to the cemetery.
The cemetery?
That's precinct 3.
Yeah.
So that's been dropped back to 1,000.
We've already ordered material.
Sorry?
We've already ordered material.
Good.
I know, mate. Owns the quarry.
The Mayor, Kelly Howlett, presented to the FIFO inquiry about 6 weeks ago a spreadsheet showing all the camps that have been approved and that have been built because they have to go through council. And that's cross-referenced against what we think demand might be. And there's still a shortfall of around about 30%. So we hope all those, it sounds silly, but we hope all those camps are built and stay behind, so that at the end of the day we can have a town where people can come here and live, and we can have other industries and businesses as well. So any figures that we can add to Kelly's numbers to make sure they're right would be really helpful. And just keep tabs, because getting the numbers has been the hardest thing for every department.
If you do subdivide and build up new properties on your existing block, in 5 years' time, what is the rentals going to be like for those? Is it going to be less or?
If I just show that, go back to that original slide that we had up here. All this period here is construction. So there will be massive demand. After here, it's up to us really as Australians and probably as local residents to ensure that we have some other industry or business that that keeps going in this town, so that we don't just build all the berths in the harbour and then find we don't have a need for people to stay here. Just to give you a bit of an example, if you're constructing for berths and rail and for iron ore, the figures I heard last week at the conference is it's around about 3 workers to construct for 1 worker to operate. So if you have 3,000 people in town to construct, you only need 1,000 at the end. Other figures I've heard is that it's 6 people, you have a 6 ratio. Apparently gas is something like 30 people to construct for 1 person to operate. So Karratha will have more highs and lows, and you'll see Karratha's prices have dropped quite a bit the last 6 months because Pluto finished construction and there's been more availability in rentals. We're 18 months behind that market is what I'm hearing at the conference last week. So the idea is that the rents now will go up in construction while we're building all the ports and things. At 5 years, they'll probably peak like this, and at 5 years they will drop. And then we'll have other industries that will help us stay in a normal market, hopefully.
What sort of percentages are you thinking of the drops? Like the drop?
Look, I've been a witch doctor who said, that they might double over the next 2 years. So if they double, that's a long way. And it shouldn't hold them very long because I hope these camps come on to ease a bit. Otherwise, you'll find companies will say, forget it, we're not expanding, we're stopping halfway through. So it would be horrible if they did go that high. And I say it because I want government to listen. This is an election year, and I want them to release land and to build houses in my town. I don't want us trying to get $6,000 a week rent, because I know it will just be like BHP with the outer harbour. It's got too expensive, we're not building. We might just wait. And we shouldn't be doing that to our industries or to our country. Okay? I'll be around all night and all day tomorrow, so if you want to ask anything else, and we've got some documents you can take with you, and also we can get copies of this to you if you like. And I'd now like to hand over to my dear friend and colleague, Kathy Bastow, who was a local lawyer here for many, many years and taught me all about real estate. So, Kathy.
Yeah.